Here are the most graphically impressive games on the Atari 2600, according to fans of the 2600. Number 10 is Jungle Hunt. What they did here is amazing. The first section actually has parallax scrolling whenever the screen moves. The second section has ocean waves with coral reefs at the bottom, and the final section has more parallax scrolling and a couple of bosses that may resemble penises that you have to jump over. Get past them and you get to dance with what looks like Pitfall Harry's sister. Maybe this is not NES level graphics, but it's certainly close to ColecoVision or the 7800. And just the fact that there's a full-fledged platformer with multiple screens and modes of play is an amazing accomplishment for the 2600. Number 9 is Enduro. You have to pass up a certain number of cars within a single day. During that day, you get to see things transition to nighttime, where all you can see is taillights. The fog will also come in during that nighttime, limiting your visibility. There's also a snowstorm, which isn't just sold by the visuals. The controls become more slippery. Everything I just mentioned is an amazing achievement for the 2600, but the winding road effect is what seals the deal. It conveys the feeling of driving. The 3 years that the people of Activision put into this game really paid off. Now wait a second, I have to correct myself. One guy programmed this in 3 months. Holy shit. So how did I come up with this list? I went to places on the internet where people were talking about graphically impressive 2600 games, and I jotted down the games that were being mentioned. Some of those conversations were on Facebook, and a lot of them were on Reddit. I also asked my own audience in this community post. This was original retail releases only. Altogether, I recorded about 880 responses, put them on a pivot table, ranked them, and made this video. That's why the girls can't keep their hands off me. My own opinion had no bearing on these rankings, and no AI was used at any point in this process. And yes, I realize that evaluating the looks of 40-year-old video games can be subjective and maybe unnecessary, but I find these kind of discussions fun, and hopefully you will too. Number 8 is Tunnel Runner. There were 256 extra bytes of RAM added to this cartridge, which allowed them to create first-person mazes for you to walk through. Not bad for a console that was initially designed to play Pong-like games and games with tanks. What you have to do in each maze is find a key and find the exit, while trying not to run into the scary enemies that are walking around. I didn't have this game as a kid, but if I did, I would have said, "Look, Mom, I'm playing big boy games now." And then she would have said, "You're 25. When are you moving out?" Number 7 is River Raid. The scrolling shoot-'em-ups genre would become huge during the 1990s, but here's one running on a 1970s console, thanks to Activision. It's easy to tell what everything is supposed to be, which isn't always a given on the 2600. The boats look like boats, the helicopters look like helicopters, the houses look like houses, the fuel tanks look like video game fuel tanks. Everything scrolls by smoothly, and there's not much in the way of glitching. It's just a competently coded game. Number 6 is Pitfall. You could think of this as graphically historic because it pretty much brought platforming into the mainstream. Well, this and another game I can't quite remember the name of, Super something. Back then, a new person playing Pitfall for the first time did not know what the next screen was going to have, so they felt compelled to keep exploring. It was kind of that way with Adventure and Superman on the 2600, but this one just has more screens and more details packed into each one of those screens. Those details include some cool looking enemies such as the snake, the scorpion, and the dreaded campfire. Number 5 is Battlezone. This is pretty much a first-person shooter on the 2600. You can move forward and backward through the three-dimensional land, and as you do that, the enemies scale in and out accordingly. You can rotate and turn completely around if needed. It gives you the feeling of freedom that a 2D world just can't deliver. Then there's the death animation. In the lore of the game, you are actually looking at a computer screen within your tank. When you get hit, that screen goes out of service, just as you do, and it's a convincing effect. They even made it so it looks a little different each time it happens. This is just an awesome game. Number 4 is football. Getting a football game running on the 2600 was no small undertaking. But here you can see they have a realistic looking field, a realistic looking scoreboard, and players who look and act like real football players. EA later took inspiration from this when they began making the John Madden games. Actually, this is a fake out. I put one of these in pretty much all of my top 10 lists because I think it's funny. Football does not belong on this list, and it probably didn't inspire the John Madden games. Number 4 is actually Space Shuttle, A Journey into Space. Here we have an amazing looking flight simulator for the 2600. There were a handful of other flight simulators for the console, but this one takes you into space. And it made use of all the various switches on the game system itself using an overlay. It's not a pick up and play game, but the graphical presentation gives you a feeling of immersion. The screen shakes as you launch into orbit. Once in orbit, you get a nice view of space, and during re-entry, you get flashes of light that simulate re-entry. It doesn't get more 1980s than flying a space shuttle on the Atari 2600. Number 3 is H.E.R.O. This is the 5th Activision game on this list. It seems unfair, but then again, they were the masters of programming the 2600, so maybe they deserve it. H.E.R.O is a platformer with a twist. You have to propel your way down into the caverns to rescue a trapped person. You then repeat the cycle again and again, and each time the stage design gets more and more elaborate and new ways to die present themselves. Things do look tiny compared to some of the other games on this list, like the little snake head sticking out and the little spider and the little stick of dynamite, but all those small elements put together make for a nice looking and nice playing game. Before we get to number 1 and 2, I want to read off some honorable mentions. These are games that barely missed being in the top 10. In no particular order, they are Demon Attack, Cosmic Ark, Stargate. This was also sold as Defender 2. Junior Pac-Man. Keystone Kapers. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Beamrider. And California Games. And now for some honorable mentions. These are games that barely missed being in the honorable mentions. Despite their position here, you should still consider them to be graphically impressive, given that there were roughly 500 games on the system. Some of you may question why Defender and Adventure are listed here. That is likely because of how early they came out in the 2600's lifespan. At that time, you didn't have as many impressive games to compare them to. Number 2 is Pitfall II: Lost Caverns. A friend of mine used to come over back in the day, and we would play this a lot. Every time he arrived, I would say, "Welcome to the jungle," referencing the jungle that's in the game, of course. I think he went on to create some kind of floral business, or perhaps it was a firearms store. Either way, my memory of playing Pitfall II has never left me, because as you can see, it's amazing for the 2600. David Crane was in his prime when he created this. He was stretching the limits of what the 2600 could do by building out this incredibly large platforming world with lots of different creatures in it. And now for what most people consider is the most graphical game on the 2600, and that is Solaris. I came across somebody who said that back in the 1980s, him and his brother walked into a Big Lots and found this game for $2 sealed. They took a look at the back of the box though and thought for sure they were being bullshitted, that was his words, because they had a 2600 and they knew that the games on the system do not look like that. Of course, it wasn't BS. In 2008, Retro Gamer magazine called this game, quote, "one of the finest pieces of code written for the 2600. End quote. In the game, you have to jump around from sector to sector, attempting to keep the enemy from conquering territory. It's a complex game to play, requiring most people to consult the manual or a walkthrough. But regardless, what I feel is the core achievement here is that it conveys the illusion that you are moving forward through space and on the planets. Objects get bigger as you get closer to them, and it does it in a very smooth way, even when you're going at full speed. You warp a lot in this game, and the effects for that look nice as well. A lot of effort was also put into your spaceship. There is thrust coming out the back of it, and it's cool how the ship changes its angle as you move back and forth. Nuances like that go a long way in the world of the Atari 2600. Okay, so if you enjoyed this top 10, consider watching some of my other top 10s. There's links to them in the description. Thank you for watching.